You find yourself standing at the edge of a new reality, the truth dawning on you all at once, a truth so raw, so uncomfortably close, that it feels like a cold wind slicing through the fabric of your carefully constructed life. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that every step you've taken, every hard-won victory, every moment you've clawed your way toward the summit of your own ambitions has been shadowed by a silent saboteur. Not an enemy lurking in the world outside, but a presence far more intimate, the part of you that, in the very moment of triumph, whispers a single devastating word: no. Picture yourself in the quiet before dawn, the world still heavy with sleep, and you alone with your thoughts. You replay the moments when you stood on the threshold of something extraordinary, a promotion, a relationship, a creative breakthrough, a chance to finally become the person you always believed you could be. And yet, just as the door creaked open, you hesitated. You stumbled. You found a reason, any reason, to turn back. Was it fear? Was it doubt? Or was it something deeper, something woven into the marrow of your being? As you take your first breath this morning, a startling realization settles in. Nothing will ever be the same, because you can no longer ignore the evidence. The patterns are everywhere, etched into the story of your life like invisible ink revealed under a harsh, unforgiving light. The job you didn't apply for because you convinced yourself you weren't ready. The love you let slip away because you feared being truly seen. The project you abandoned. The dream you shelved. The apology you never made. Each one a monument to a war waged within. A war you never fully understood. Suddenly, you're faced with a moment that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. You always believed you wanted to succeed, to rise, to transcend the limitations of your past. But what if that's only half the story? What if beneath the surface, there is a force pulling you back, a gravitational field of self-doubt, shame, or even a twisted sense of comfort in the familiar pain of failure? What if the greatest obstacle to your own success is not the world, not your circumstances, not even your so-called enemies, but you? You stand in the center of your own life, surrounded by the ruins of abandoned ambitions and half-built dreams. The air is thick with questions that refuse to be silenced. Why do you sabotage your own success? Why do you build walls just as you're about to break through? Why do you turn away from the very things you claim to desire most? Is it fear of failure, or is it something more insidious? A fear of what success might demand of you, of who you might become if you finally let yourself win. The paradox is almost unbearable. You long for greatness, yet you shrink from it. You crave love, yet you push it away. You yearn for freedom, yet you chain yourself to old habits, old wounds, old stories. You are both the architect and the arsonist, building your future with one hand and setting it ablaze with the other. How can this be? How can you be both the hero and the villain in your own story? You remember the moments when you stood on the precipice of change, the world wide open before you, and felt a surge of possibility so electric it made your skin tingle. But then, just as quickly, the doubts crept in. What if you're not good enough? What if you succeed only to lose it all? What if the people you love turn away, unable to recognize the new you? What if, in the end, you discover that even your wildest dreams cannot fill the emptiness inside? You try to trace the origins of this self-sabotage, to find the moment when you first learned to fear your own power. Was it a parent's disapproving glance? A teacher's careless words? A friend's betrayal? Or was it something more subtle? A lesson absorbed from the culture around you, a culture that celebrates success but punishes those who dare to stand out, who dare to want more. You wonder if you are alone in this struggle, or if every person you meet is fighting the same invisible battle, hiding the same secret wounds. The questions multiply, each one more unsettling than the last. What if your greatest fear is not that you will fail, but that you will succeed, and that success will demand a sacrifice you are not willing to make? What if you have built your entire identity around struggle, around being the underdog, the survivor, the one who almost made it? What happens when you finally cross the finish line? Who are you, if not the person who is always striving, always reaching, always just out of reach? You begin to see the outlines of a deeper truth, one that shatters the comforting narratives you've told yourself. Success is not just a destination, it is a transformation, a shedding of old skins, old beliefs, old fears. And transformation is terrifying. It means letting go of the familiar, stepping into the unknown, risking everything for the chance to become someone new. It means facing the parts of yourself you have spent a lifetime avoiding, the parts that are afraid, ashamed, unworthy. You feel the weight of this realization pressing down on you, a gravity that threatens to pull you under. But you also sense a flicker of something else, a wild, defiant hope. What if this struggle is not a sign of weakness, but a sign that you are on the verge of something extraordinary? What if the very act of questioning, of wrestling with your own resistance, is the first step toward freedom? You look back on your life and see the moments when you sabotaged your own success, not out of malice or stupidity, but out of a desperate need to protect yourself from the unknown. You see the ways you have clung to old identities, old wounds because they were familiar, because they made sense of the chaos. You see the ways you have dimmed your own light, not because you lacked ambition, but because you feared what that light might reveal. And now, standing at the edge of this new reality, you are forced to confront the most unsettling question of all. What if you are not the victim of your own life, but its creator? What if every act of self-sabotage is a choice, a decision made in the shadows, a way of keeping yourself safe from the terror of true transformation? What if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the story you keep telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve? The tension is almost unbearable, a knot in your chest that refuses to loosen. You want answers, you want relief, you want to believe that there is a way out of this labyrinth. But for now, all you have are questions, questions that echo in the silence, demanding to be heard. Why do you sabotage your own success? What are you so afraid of? What would happen if you finally let yourself win? Who would you become if you stopped running from your own greatness? As the first light of dawn creeps through your window, you realize that you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads back to the safety of the familiar, the comfort of old patterns and old pain. The other leads into the unknown, into the possibility of a life transformed. The choice is yours, but first you must understand the forces that have shaped you, the hidden currents that have pulled you back, time and time again. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle into your bones. The journey ahead will not be easy. It will demand honesty, courage, and a willingness to face the darkest parts of yourself. But somewhere, deep inside, you sense that the answers you seek are waiting for you, just beyond the horizon. And so, with your heart pounding and your mind racing, you step forward into the mystery, ready to uncover the hidden problem at the root of your self-sabotage. The truth is out there, waiting to be revealed. All you have to do is keep asking the questions and refuse to look away. You step into the dim corridor of your own mind, the air thick with the scent of old memories and unspoken fears. The questions from before still echo, but now they begin to morph, to take on new shapes, shadows flickering against the walls, hinting at something ancient and elusive. You sense that the answer to your self-sabotage is not simple, not a matter of willpower or discipline, but something far more intricate, a hidden architecture of the psyche, built over years, perhaps lifetimes. You remember the first time you felt the sting of disappointment, the first time you tasted the bitterness of falling short. Was it in childhood, when you reached for something forbidden, and were gently, or not so gently, told no? Was it the moment you realized that love could be withdrawn, that approval was conditional, that the world was not a place of endless possibility, but a maze of rules and punishments? You begin to see how these early lessons carved grooves into your mind, channels through which your thoughts and actions would flow for years to come. Carl Jung once wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You feel the truth of this in your bones. The self-saboteur is not a stranger, not an enemy, but a part of you that has been exiled to the shadows, a part that acts out its fears and desires in secret. You wonder, what does this hidden self want? What is it trying to protect you from? You recall the myth of Icarus, soaring too close to the sun, his wings melting as he plummets to the sea. You have always been told to fear hubris, to beware the dangers of wanting too much, of flying too high. But what if the real danger is not in the ascent, but in the refusal to rise at all? What if you have internalized the warnings of a world that fears greatness, that punishes those who dare to break free from the herd. Nietzsche's words ring in your ears. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But what if your why has been buried beneath layers of shame and self-doubt? What if you have learned to associate success not with joy but with loss, with the fear of outgrowing those you love, of leaving behind the safety of the known? You begin to see how your self-sabotage is not a flaw, but a strategy, a way of staying connected, of belonging, of avoiding the loneliness that comes with standing apart. You think of Schopenhauer, who saw life as a ceaseless striving, a will that can never be satisfied. You wonder if your self-sabotage is a way of keeping the game going, of ensuring that there is always something left to chase, some new obstacle to overcome. If you were to succeed, truly succeed, what would be left? Would you find peace, or would you be confronted with a new kind of emptiness, a void that no achievement can fill? You remember the words of Aldous Huxley, who warned of the dangers of comfort, of the soma that numbs us to the pain and beauty of existence. You see how easy it is to settle for mediocrity, to anesthetize yourself with distractions and excuses, to avoid the terror of true freedom. You realize that self-sabotage is, in its own way, a form of comfort, a way of staying small, of avoiding the responsibility that comes with power. You feel the weight of Sartre's existentialism pressing down on you, the idea that you are condemned to be free, that every choice is a burden, that you are the author of your own life whether you like it or not. You see how self-sabotage is a way of refusing this freedom, of surrendering to the illusion that you are powerless, that your fate is sealed. It is easier sometimes to be a victim than a creator, to blame the world rather than face the terror of your own agency. You think of Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in the midst of unimaginable suffering, who taught that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to choose our response. You wonder if your self-sabotage is a way of avoiding this responsibility, of clinging to the familiar pain rather than risking the unknown. You see how the stories you tell yourself about your past, your limitations, your worth, become self-fulfilling prophecies, cages built from words and beliefs. You begin to see the outlines of the hidden problem. Self-sabotage is not a single act, but a pattern, a dance between desire and fear, hope and despair. It is the product of 1,000 tiny choices, each one shaped by forces you barely understand. Childhood wounds, cultural myths, existential anxieties. It is the shadow side of ambition, the price you pay for wanting more than the world says you deserve. You feel the tension between your longing for greatness and your fear of what greatness might cost. You see how you have internalized the voices of authority, parents, teachers, society itself, until they speak with your own voice, whispering doubts and warnings at the very moment you are about to break free. You realize that self-sabotage is not just a personal failing, but a collective inheritance passed down through generations, encoded in the stories we tell about success and failure, about who gets to rise and who must stay small. You remember the moments when you almost succeeded, when you felt the surge of possibility, and then inexplicably pulled back. You see now that these moments were not accidents, but the result of a hidden calculus, a weighing of risks and rewards, of belonging and isolation, of safety and transformation. You realize that every act of self-sabotage is a negotiation with the self, a compromise between the part of you that wants to soar and the part that fears the fall. You begin to question the very nature of success. What does it mean to win, to achieve, to become? Is it a matter of external validation, money, status, applause, or is it something deeper, a sense of alignment between who you are and who you might become? You see how easy it is to chase the wrong goals, to pursue success as defined by others, only to find yourself empty and unfulfilled when you finally arrive. You feel the pull of the familiar, the comfort of old patterns. It is easier to stay where you are, to repeat the same mistakes, to blame fate or circumstance, but you also sense a growing restlessness, a hunger for something more. You realize that the only way out is through. The only way to break the cycle of self-sabotage is to confront the fears and beliefs that sustain it, to bring the unconscious into the light. You wonder what it would mean to truly see yourself, to face the parts of you that you have exiled to the shadows. Would you find a monster or a wounded child? Would you discover that your self-sabotage is not an act of malice, but a misguided attempt at self-protection. You begin to suspect that the key to freedom lies not in fighting the saboteur, but in understanding it, in listening to what it has to say. You recall Jung's idea of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or deny, but which continue to shape our lives from the darkness. You see how your self-sabotage is a message from the shadow, a signal that something within you needs to be seen, heard, integrated. You realize that the path to success is not a straight line but a spiral, a journey inward, a confrontation with the hidden forces that shape your destiny. You feel the weight of this realization, the enormity of the task before you. It is not enough to set goals, to make plans, to will yourself forward. You must also reckon with the parts of yourself that resist change, that fear the unknown, that cling to the safety of the familiar. You must become both detective and healer, uncovering the roots of your self-sabotage and tending to the wounds that keep you trapped. You sense that this is the work of a lifetime, a process of continual self-discovery and transformation. There will be setbacks, relapses, moments of doubt, but you also feel a glimmer of hope, a sense that by bringing these hidden forces into the light, you can begin to reclaim your power, to write a new story for yourself. You stand at the threshold of this new understanding, the old patterns still tugging at your heels, but the promise of freedom beckoning you forward. You know that the journey will not be easy, that it will require courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the darkest parts of yourself. But you also know that the alternative, remaining trapped in the cycle of self-sabotage, is no longer acceptable. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past begin to lift, replaced by a sense of possibility. The hidden problem has been revealed, its roots exposed, but the consequences of this revelation are only beginning to unfold. What happens when you see the truth, but are still trapped by old habits, old fears? What price have you paid for your self-sabotage, and what will it take to break free? The answers lie ahead, waiting to be discovered. For now, you stand in the light of this new understanding, ready to face the unseen consequences of the patterns that have shaped your life. You stand in the half-light of your own awareness, the roots of self-sabotage now exposed, raw and trembling beneath the surface. But as you peer into the depths, you begin to sense that the true cost of this hidden war is far greater than you ever imagined. The consequences are not just personal, they ripple outward, shaping the very fabric of your reality, distorting the world you inhabit, and quietly infecting the lives of those around you. You think back to the moments when you faltered, when you let fear or doubt dictate your choices. At first, these seemed like isolated incidents, an interview missed, a relationship left to wither, a project abandoned in the final hour. But now, with the clarity of hindsight, you see the pattern, a web of missed opportunities, each thread connecting to the next, forming a tapestry of regret. You realize that self-sabotage is not a single act, but a way of being, a silent architect shaping the contours of your existence. You begin to notice how this pattern has shaped your sense of self. Each time you shrink from success, you reinforce the story that you are not enough, not worthy, not destined for greatness. The voice of the saboteur grows louder, more convincing, until it becomes indistinguishable from your own. You start to believe that your limitations are facts, not choices, that the walls around you are made of stone, not sand. But the consequences do not end with you. You see how your self-sabotage seeps into your relationships, coloring every interaction with a subtle undertone of fear and insecurity. You hold back your true self, afraid of being rejected or misunderstood. You settle for less, convincing yourself that it is better to be safe than to risk the pain of loss. You become a ghost in your own life, present but not fully alive, always holding something in reserve. You watch as your friends, your family, your colleagues mirror your patterns, each of them caught in their own cycles of self-doubt and retreat. You realize that self-sabotage is contagious, a silent epidemic passed from one person to the next, reinforced by a culture that rewards conformity and punishes those who dare to stand out. You see how entire communities, even nations, can be shaped by this invisible force, their potential stunted by a collective fear of failure and success alike. You begin to understand the role of cognitive biases in this process, the subtle tricks your mind plays to keep you safe but small. Confirmation bias leads you to seek out evidence that supports your fears, ignoring the signs of your own strength. The sunk cost fallacy keeps you tethered to old patterns, unwilling to let go of the pain you have already invested. Imposter syndrome whispers that you are a fraud, that your achievements are accidents, that sooner or later you will be exposed. You feel the weight of cultural conditioning pressing down on you, the stories you have been told about what is possible, what is acceptable, what is normal. You remember the lessons of childhood, the rules of the code playground, the expectations of parents and teachers. You see how these stories have shaped your beliefs about success and failure, about who you are and who you are allowed to become. You realize that self-sabotage is not just a personal failing, but a cultural inheritance, a legacy of fear passed down through generations. You think of the neurological roots of this pattern, the way your brain is wired to avoid pain, to seek safety, to cling to the familiar. You remember that the amygdala, the ancient seat of fear, is always on guard, scanning for threats both real and imagined. You see how the prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason and planning, is often overruled by the primal urge to survive. You realize that self-sabotage is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the power of your own biology, a system designed to protect you, even at the cost of your dreams. But as you trace the consequences of self-sabotage through your life, you begin to see something even more insidious. Each act of retreat, each moment of hesitation creates a feedback loop, a cycle of disappointment and self-doubt that becomes harder to break with each repetition. You start to expect failure, to anticipate rejection, to see obstacles where none exist. Your world shrinks, your options narrow, until you are living in a prison of your own making. You feel the urgency of escape, the need to break free from this unseen trap. You sense that time is slipping away, that every day spent in self-sabotage is a day lost forever. You wonder how many dreams have died in the shadows, how many lives have been diminished by the quiet poison of fear. You realize that the cost of self-sabotage is not just measured in missed opportunities, but in the slow erosion of hope, the gradual dimming of the light within. You look around and see the same patterns playing out on a larger scale. You see organizations crippled by risk aversion, leaders paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. You see societies that punish innovation, that reward mediocrity, that teach their children to aim low and play it safe. You see the consequences in the stagnation of progress, the loss of creativity, the triumph of cynicism over possibility. You begin to question the very nature of reality. Is the world truly as limited as it seems? Or have you been conditioned to see only the walls, not the doors? You remember the words of Jean-Paul Sartre, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." You realize that the prison is not made of stone, but of stories. Stories you have inherited, stories you have chosen to believe. You feel the tension between the safety of the known and the terror of the unknown. You see how self-sabotage offers a kind of certainty, a way of avoiding the risks of change. But you also sense that this certainty is an illusion, a comfort that comes at the cost of your own potential. You realize that the only way to escape is to risk everything, to step into the unknown, to embrace the possibility of failure and the promise of transformation. You begin to see the outlines of a breakthrough, a way out of the labyrinth. But the path is not easy, and the stakes are high. You must be willing to confront the consequences of your choices, to take responsibility for the life you have created. You must be willing to let go of the stories that have kept you safe, to risk the pain of growth and the joy of becoming. You feel the urgency building, the sense that something must change. You cannot go on living in the shadow of your own potential, cannot continue to trade your dreams for the comfort of the familiar. You sense that the time has come to rebel, to break the cycle of self-sabotage and claim the life that is waiting for you. But before you can do this, you must face the final consequence. The realization that the only thing standing between you and your dreams is the story you tell yourself about what is possible. You must be willing to rewrite that story, to become the author of your own destiny. You stand at the threshold of transformation, the consequences of your past choices laid bare before you. The path ahead is uncertain, but the promise of freedom beckons. You know that the time has come to rebel, to break free from the patterns that have held you back, to claim the life that is yours by right. The question now is not whether you can escape, but whether you are willing to risk everything for the chance to become who you were always meant to be. You feel it, a pulse, a tremor, a quiet uprising in the marrow of your bones. The old stories are crumbling, the walls you once mistook for reality now revealed as paper thin. The consequences of self-sabotage have become unbearable, and something within you refuses to accept another day in the prison of your own making. The rebellion begins not with a shout, but with a whisper. What if everything you've believed about yourself is wrong? You stand at the crossroads, the familiar path behind you, the unknown stretching out before you like a wild, uncharted forest. The urge to turn back is strong, but a deeper hunger propels you forward, a hunger for freedom, for authenticity, for a life unshackled by fear. You realize that the first act of rebellion is not against the world, but against the tyranny of your own mind. You remember the words of Nietzsche, who urged us to become who we are. You see now that this is not a passive process, but a battle, a daily moment-to-moment struggle to reclaim your birthright from the forces that would keep you small. You understand that the enemy is not failure, but resignation, not pain but numbness, not the unknown but the refusal to explore it. You begin to question every assumption, every inherited belief. Who told you that you were not enough? Who convinced you that your dreams were dangerous, that your desires were shameful, that your power was a threat? You realize that these voices are not your own. They are echoes of a world that fears change, that punishes difference, that worships safety above all else. The rebellion begins with the simple, radical act of doubt. What if they were wrong? You feel the old patterns rising up, desperate to reassert control. The saboteur whispers that you will fail, that you will be alone, that you will lose everything if you dare to step beyond the boundaries of the known. But you see these fears for what they are: ghosts, illusions, the last defense of a dying order. You realize that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. You remember the stories of those who broke free. Artists, revolutionaries, visionaries who refused to accept the limits imposed upon them. You think of Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in suffering and transformed it into a source of strength. You think of Jean-Paul Sartre, who insisted that freedom is both a burden and a gift, that we are condemned to choose, to create, to become. You think of the countless unnamed rebels who, in small and quiet ways, have chosen authenticity over approval, truth over comfort, life over mere survival. You realize that rebellion is not a single act, but a way of being, a commitment to honesty, to self-examination, to the relentless pursuit of what is real. You begin to practice this rebellion in small ways, speaking your truth, even when your voice trembles, taking risks, even when failure seems certain, choosing growth, even when it means leaving behind the safety of the familiar. You notice the resistance within you, the part that clings to old wounds, old identities, old certainties. You see how easy it is to slip back into the comfort of self-sabotage, to trade the pain of growth for the numbness of routine. But you also feel a new strength emerging, a sense of possibility that grows with every act of defiance. You realize that the rebellion is not about eradicating fear, but about expanding your capacity to hold it, to move through it, to use it as fuel for transformation. You begin to experiment with new ways of thinking, new ways of being. You challenge the stories you have told yourself about what is possible, about what you deserve, about who you are. You practice self-compassion, recognizing that the saboteur is not your enemy, but a wounded part of you that needs to be seen, heard, and healed. You learn to listen to your fears without obeying them, to honor your pain without letting it define you. You discover the power of radical acceptance, the willingness to face reality as it is without denial or distortion. You realize that true freedom comes not from escaping your limitations, but from embracing them, from using them as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. You see that every act of rebellion, no matter how small, is an act of creation, a way of shaping the world in your own image, of becoming the author of your own story. You begin to surround yourself with fellow rebels, people who challenge you, inspire you, hold you accountable to your highest self. You seek out mentors, teachers, allies who have walked the path before you, who can offer guidance and support when the way grows dark. You realize that rebellion is not a solitary endeavor, but a collective one, a movement of souls who refuse to accept the world as it is, who dare to imagine what it could be. You practice gratitude, not as a denial of pain, but as a recognition of possibility. You learn to celebrate your victories, no matter how small, to honor your progress, to forgive your setbacks. You realize that the path of rebellion is not linear but cyclical, a spiral of growth, regression, and renewal. You learn to trust the process, to surrender to the mystery, to find meaning in the journey itself. You begin to see the world with new eyes. The obstacles that once seemed insurmountable now appear as invitations to grow, to learn, to become. The failures that once defined you now serve as teachers, guiding you toward deeper wisdom and resilience. The fears that once paralyzed you now become signals, pointing the way toward your deepest desires. You realize that the ultimate act of rebellion is to claim your own authority, to trust your own experience, your own intuition, your own vision. You understand that no one else can define your worth, your purpose, your destiny. You see that the power to change your life has always been yours, waiting for you to seize it. You begin to rewrite the story of your life, one choice at a time. You choose courage over comfort, truth over illusion, love over fear. You choose to show up, to speak out, to risk everything for the sake of becoming who you are meant to be. You realize that the rebellion is not about conquering the world, but about conquering yourself, about breaking free from the chains of self-doubt, self-judgment, self-betrayal. You feel the old world falling away, the new world rising up to meet you. You sense that you are not alone, that countless others are waking up, breaking free, reclaiming their power. You realize that every act of rebellion, no matter how small, sends ripples through the fabric of reality, changing the world in ways you cannot yet imagine. You stand at the threshold of a new life, the past behind you, the future wide open. The rebellion has begun, and there is no turning back. You know that the path ahead will be difficult, that you will face setbacks, disappointments, moments of doubt, but you also know that you are no longer a prisoner of your own mind, no longer a victim of your own fears. You are a rebel, a creator, a force of nature. You have claimed your freedom, and with it the power to shape your own destiny. The world is waiting for you to step forward, to take your place among the rebels, the visionaries, the dreamers who refuse to accept the limits of the past. The time has come to break free, to rise, to become. The rebellion is yours, claim it. You stand in the aftermath of your rebellion, the air electric with possibility, the ruins of your old self scattered at your feet. The world feels different, sharper, more vivid, as if the colors have deepened and the shadows have receded. You have broken the chains, shattered the mirrors that once reflected only your limitations. But as you gaze into the vastness of what remains, a deeper question emerges, one that trembles at the edge of your awareness. What now? You realize that freedom is not an end, but a beginning. The old stories are gone, but the page is blank, and the pen is in your hand. The silence is both exhilarating and terrifying. You are no longer defined by your wounds, your fears, your failures. You are no longer the sum of your self-sabotage. But if you are not these things, then who are you? You feel the weight of this question settle into your bones, heavier than any chain you have ever worn. The paradox is almost unbearable. You have fought so hard to escape your prison, only to find yourself standing in a space so open, so infinite, that it threatens to swallow you whole. The safety of the old walls is gone, and with it the comfort of certainty. You are free, but freedom is a void, a blank canvas, a responsibility that cannot be shirked. You remember the words of Viktor Frankl echoing through the corridors of your mind. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. You see now that the ultimate truth is not about conquering the world, but about transforming your relationship to it. The final, most powerful realization is this: you are the author of your own meaning. You look back on the journey, the moments of doubt, the acts of rebellion, the slow, painful process of becoming. You see that every act of self-sabotage was not a failure, but a message, a signal from the depths of your being. Each time you turned away from success, you were not rejecting life, but calling out for something deeper, something truer. You were searching for meaning, for purpose, for a reason to rise. You realize that the ultimate act of self-sabotage is to live without meaning, to drift through life on autopilot, to accept the stories handed to you by others. You see that the antidote is not success as the world defines it, money, status, applause, but the courage to create your own definition, to live in alignment with your deepest values, your most authentic self. You feel the truth of this in your body, a resonance that vibrates through every cell. The final barrier is not fear, but meaninglessness. The final enemy is not failure, but the refusal to claim your own authority, to become the source of your own purpose. You see that the world is not waiting to give you meaning. It is waiting for you to give meaning to the world. You remember the philosophers who have walked this path before you. Nietzsche, who declared that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Sartre, who insisted that existence precedes essence, that you are condemned to be free, to choose, to create. You see now that their words were not abstractions, but invitations, calls to arms for those brave enough to face the void and fill it with their own light. You realize that the journey was never about escaping your limitations, but about embracing your freedom. The rebellion was not against the world, but against the lie that you are powerless, that your life is meaningless, that you are at the mercy of forces beyond your control. The ultimate truth is that you are the force, you are the meaning, you are the creator. You feel a surge of power, a sense of possibility so vast it makes you dizzy. You see that every moment is a choice, every breath an act of creation. You are no longer bound by the past, no longer defined by your wounds. You are free to choose, free to create, free to become. But with this freedom comes a new kind of responsibility, a responsibility to yourself, to the world, to the future. You realize that your life is not just your own, but a thread in the tapestry of existence, a note in the symphony of being. Your choices matter, your actions ripple outward, shaping the world in ways you cannot yet imagine. You feel the weight of this responsibility, but it is not a burden, it is a gift, a privilege, a call to greatness. You see that the ultimate act of rebellion is not to escape the world, but to engage with it fully, to bring your whole self to every moment, to live with intention, with passion, with purpose. You remember the moments when you stood on the edge of possibility, paralyzed by fear, by doubt, by the stories of your own unworthiness. You see now that these moments were invitations, opportunities to step into your power, to claim your place in the world, to become the hero of your own story. You realize that the journey never ends, that the work of becoming is never finished. There will always be new fears, new doubts, new stories to confront. But you are no longer afraid. You have faced the darkness and found the light within. You have broken the chains and discovered that the key was always in your hand. You stand at the edge of the world, the horizon ablaze with possibility. The old self is gone, the new self is rising. You are not a victim, not a saboteur, not a prisoner. You are a creator, a rebel, a force of nature. You are the author of your own meaning, the architect of your own destiny. You take a deep breath, feeling the power of this realization settle into your bones. The world is waiting for you, waiting for your voice, your vision, your courage. The time has come to step forward, to claim your place, to live with intention, with passion, with purpose. You realize that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a way of being, a commitment to show up, to engage, to create, to love. You see that every moment is an opportunity to choose, to become, to make meaning out of chaos. You are no longer afraid of failure, no longer paralyzed by doubt. You are free. You look around and see the world with new eyes. The obstacles that once seemed insurmountable now appear as invitations to grow, to learn, to become. The failures that once defined you now serve as teachers, guiding you toward deeper wisdom and resilience. The fears that once paralyzed you now become signals, pointing the way toward your deepest desires. You realize that the journey was never about escaping your limitations, but about embracing your freedom. The rebellion was not against the world, but against the lie that you are powerless, that your life is meaningless, that you are at the mercy of forces beyond your control. The ultimate truth is that you are the force, you are the meaning, you are the creator. You feel a surge of power, a sense of possibility so vast it makes you dizzy. You see that every moment is a choice, every breath an act of creation. You are no longer bound by the past, no longer defined by your wounds. You are free to choose, free to create, free to become. But with this freedom comes a new kind of responsibility. A responsibility to yourself, to the world, to the future. You realize that your life is not just your own, but a thread in the tapestry of existence, a note in the symphony of being. Your choices matter. Your actions ripple outward, shaping the world in ways you cannot yet imagine. You feel the weight of this responsibility, but it is not a burden. It is a gift, a privilege, a call to greatness. You see that the ultimate act of rebellion is not to escape the world, but to engage with it fully, to bring your whole self to every moment, to live with intention, with passion, with purpose. You remember the moments when you stood on the edge of possibility, paralyzed by fear, by doubt, by the stories of your own unworthiness. You see now that these moments were invitations, opportunities to step into your power, to claim your place in the world, to become the hero of your own story. You realize that the journey never ends, that the work of becoming is never finished. There will always be new fears, new doubts, new stories to confront. But you are no longer afraid. You have faced the darkness and found the light within. You have broken the chains and discovered that the key was always in your hand. You stand at the edge of the world, the horizon ablaze with possibility. The old self is gone, the new self is rising. You are not a victim, not a saboteur, not a prisoner. You are a creator, a rebel, a force of nature. You are the author of your own meaning, the architect of your own destiny. You take a deep breath, feeling the power of this realization settle into your bones. The world is waiting for you, waiting for your voice, your vision, your courage. The time has come to step forward, to claim your place, to live with intention, with passion, with purpose. You realize that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a way of being, a commitment to show up, to engage, to create, to love. You see that every moment is an opportunity to choose, to become, to make meaning out of chaos. You are no longer afraid of failure, no longer paralyzed by doubt. You are free. You look around and see the world with new eyes. The obstacles that once seemed insurmountable now appear as invitations to grow, to learn, to become. The failures that once defined you now serve as teachers, guiding you toward deeper wisdom and resilience. The fears that once paralyzed you now become signals, pointing the way toward your deepest desires. You realize that the journey was never about escaping your limitations, but about embracing your freedom. The rebellion was not against the world, but against the lie that you are powerless, that your life is meaningless, that you are at the mercy of forces beyond your control. The ultimate truth is that you are the force, you are the meaning, you are the creator. You feel a surge of power, a sense of possibility so vast it makes you dizzy. You see that every moment is a choice, every breath an act of creation. You are no longer bound by the past, no longer defined by your wounds. You are free to choose, free to create, free to become. But with this freedom comes a new kind of responsibility. A responsibility to yourself, to the world, to the future. You realize that your life is not just your own, but a thread in the tapestry of existence, a note in the symphony of being. Your choices matter, your actions ripple outward, shaping the world in ways you cannot yet imagine. You feel the weight of this responsibility, but it is not a burden, it is a gift, a privilege, a call to greatness. You see that the ultimate act of rebellion is not to escape the world, but to engage with it fully, to bring your whole self to every moment, to live with intention, with passion, with purpose. You remember the moments when you stood on the edge of possibility, paralyzed by fear, by doubt, by the stories of your own unworthiness. You see now that these moments were invitations, opportunities to step into your power, to claim your place in the world, to become the hero of your own story. You realize that the journey never ends, that the work of becoming is never finished. There will always be new fears, new doubts, new stories to confront. But you are no longer afraid. You have faced the darkness and found the light within. You have broken the chains and discovered that the key was always in your hand. You stand at the edge of the world, the horizon ablaze with possibility. The old self is gone. The new self is rising. You are not a victim, not a saboteur, not a prisoner. You are a creator, a rebel, a force of nature. You are the author of your own meaning, the architect of your own destiny. You take a deep breath, feeling the power of this realization settle into your bones. The world is waiting for you, waiting for your voice, your vision, your courage. The time has come to step forward, to claim your place, to live with intention, with passion, with purpose. You realize that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a way of being, a commitment to show up, to engage, to create, to love. You see that every moment is an opportunity to choose, to become, to make meaning out of chaos. You are no longer afraid of failure, no longer paralyzed by doubt. You are free. You step forward, the world unfolding before you. Every breath a new beginning. The journey is yours. The meaning is yours. The future is yours.